David was 55, but in his heart, he still felt like the young man who once stayed up late with his college friends, took spontaneous road trips with his wife before the kids, and had endless energy to tackle whatever came his way. The mirror, however, told a different story, and so did his body. Over the years, the responsibilities of work, family, and bills had carved lines into his face, and the spark of vigor he once carried seemed to dim little by little. At first, it was subtle. Slower mornings, a bit more effort to get out of bed, yawning during meetings, and nights where he'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why his body betrayed him. It wasn't just fatigue. Sleep had become his enemy. He would fall asleep only to wake up an hour later, tossing and turning until the early hours, and when he did manage to rest, it was shallow. He woke groggy, his mind clouded, and every morning felt like climbing a hill before the day had even started. His wife, Anna, noticed too. She asked gently if something was wrong, if maybe stress was keeping him up. He shrugged her off, saying, "It's just part of getting older." But inside, he felt the sting of loss of his energy, his drive, his confidence as a man. The intimacy in his marriage suffered most. He loved Anna deeply, but his body often refused to cooperate. What once came naturally now felt like a chore, and worse, it embarrassed him. He avoided moments that might lead to intimacy because he couldn't bear the thought of disappointing her. The silence that grew between them at night was heavier than any argument they'd ever had. He convinced himself this was life after 50, a slow decline toward less. One evening, exhausted from another restless night and a long day at work, David slumped into his recliner and opened YouTube. His usual routine was to watch a few random clips before bed, hoping it would relax him, but that night he stumbled on something unexpected. A thumbnail popped up of Dr. Rena Malik, the well-known urologist who often spoke about men's health. The title read, "The one vitamin men over 50 should take at night." He almost scrolled past. Vitamins. Really? He'd already tried multivitamins, supplements from the pharmacy, even teas that promised relaxation but only made him groggier. Still, something in her calm, confident expression caught his attention, and he clicked. The video began with her explaining how men over 50 often struggle with energy, poor sleep, and performance issues, not because of some inevitable decline, but because their bodies were missing key nutrients. She spoke about how the right vitamin, taken at the right time, especially at night, could influence the quality of sleep, hormone balance, and even restore vigor. David listened closely, arms crossed, skeptical but hooked. She wasn't selling a miracle cure. She was talking about science, about how the body replenishes itself during rest, and how one missing link could hold everything back. By the time the video ended, David sat forward in his chair. The words echoed in his mind. "It's never too late to take back your health." He hesitated. Was this just another internet promise? Another thing he'd try for a week before shoving it in the back of a cabinet? But something was different this time. The way she explained it made sense. He realized he had been dismissing his health as if it no longer mattered, as if decline was natural and unchangeable. Maybe that was the lie he had been telling himself to hide from his own disappointment. The next morning, still groggy but with a flicker of determination, David stopped at the local pharmacy. He stood in the aisle staring at rows of bottles, vitamins, minerals, blends promising energy and youth. He read labels, compared brands, and finally found the one Dr. Malik had emphasized. He held the bottle in his hand for a long time before putting it in his basket. It felt small, almost silly compared to the heaviness of his problems. Yet he bought it anyway. That night, after brushing his teeth and turning out the lights, David opened the bottle and took one capsule with a glass of water. He lay in bed, unsure what to expect. Nothing happened right away, of course, and he laughed at himself for imagining some magical effect. He repeated quietly, almost like a promise to himself, I'll give this a fair chance. Anna turned to him in the dark and whispered, "What are you thinking about?" He hesitated, then said honestly, "I'm trying something new, just trying to feel like myself again." She reached for his hand and squeezed it softly. That small gesture carried more hope than he had felt in years. As David drifted towards sleep that night, his mind was still restless, his body still heavy. But for the first time in a long time, he felt something else under the surface. Not instant results, not a miracle, but the spark of possibility. It was like planting a seed in soil he thought was barren, and somewhere deep inside, he believed maybe, just maybe, life after 50 didn't have to mean decline. Maybe it could mean renewal, if only he was willing to give himself permission to try. That was the beginning. The moment an exhausted man, beaten down by time and silence, decided to put faith in one simple step, a single vitamin at night. And in doing so, opened the door to rediscovering his own strength. The first week felt like a test of patience. David took the capsule every night, chasing it down with water, sometimes with a quiet mutter of doubt in his chest. He wanted results, but the restless tossing and turning still came. By the third night, he almost laughed at himself for believing a pill could turn back time. Yet on the sixth night, something shifted. He had come home exhausted from work, eaten dinner with Anna, and collapsed into bed earlier than usual, this time instead of staring at the ceiling until midnight. He felt his eyes grow heavy within minutes. The next thing he knew, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. For the first time in years, he had slept more than 7 hours straight. When he sat up in bed, he expected the usual grogginess, the leaden weight in his skull that made mornings feel like wading through mud. But it wasn't there. He blinked, stretched, and realized with a start that his body felt rested, alert, almost light. Anna, already awake and sipping her coffee, raised an eyebrow at his expression. "You look different," she said, half teasing. He chuckled, but inside he felt a spark of hope. The following days deepened the change. His sleep cycles grew smoother, less interrupted. Instead of waking up every hour, he slipped into deeper, more restorative rest. The difference began to show at work. His colleagues, who had grown used to his yawns and sluggish afternoons, noticed him moving quicker, speaking with more energy, even smiling more. One co-worker joked, "Did you discover some secret energy drink?" David laughed but kept his secret. He wasn't ready to tell anyone, not even Anna, how a single vitamin seemed to be turning things around. It wasn't only the sleep. In the evenings, after dinner, he noticed his energy didn't crash the way it used to. He found himself standing up to wash the dishes before Anna could, humming as he worked, or suggesting a walk around the neighborhood. On one of those walks, Anna slipped her hand into his. The way she looked at him, surprised, pleased, made his chest tighten. She hadn't seen this side of him in years. They talked longer than usual that night, laughing at old memories, sharing little secrets as if they were courting again. And then there was the spark that returned to his private life. At first, it was subtle. He noticed his confidence growing, a quiet stirring of desire that had long been absent. He didn't shy away from Anna's touch anymore. Instead, he welcomed it, met her eyes, teased her gently. The first night they reconnected fully, it wasn't just passion. It was relief, intimacy reborn. Anna looked at him afterward with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I've missed you." He kissed her forehead and thought, "I've missed myself too." By the second week, David could hardly believe the transformation. He began to wonder if this was all coincidence, but the evidence was undeniable. His sleep was consistent, his mornings strong, his energy steady throughout the day. He even noticed improvements in little things he hadn't expected: less stiffness in his joints, better focus during meetings, fewer cravings for late-night snacks. His body was responding as if it had been waiting all along for this missing piece. Anna started to notice too. One evening, She watched him while they were cooking dinner together, her eyes shining with amusement. "You're humming again," she said. "You haven't done that in years." David shrugged, embarrassed, but she reached up to kiss him on the cheek. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop." The vitamin became more than just a capsule. It became a ritual, a promise to himself. Each night, as he swallowed it with water, he felt like he was choosing a different future. He wasn't surrendering to age anymore. He was actively shaping his life one small step at a time. He even started researching more about men's health, reading articles, and watching more of Dr. Malik's videos. For the first time, he realized how little attention he had given his own body over the years. He had pushed through exhaustion, ignored warning signs, and treated his decline as inevitable. Now he saw clearly neglect was the real thief, not age. By the third week, even his friends began to notice. At a Saturday gathering, one of his old buddies slapped him on the back and said, "Man, you look 10 years younger. What's your secret?" David laughed it off, muttering something about better sleep. But inside he felt a rush of pride. It wasn't vanity, it was the joy of knowing he had reclaimed something he thought was gone forever. One of the most powerful moments came one evening when Anna sat beside him on the couch holding his hand. "David," she said softly, "I don't know what's changed, but I feel like I have my husband back. Not just in the way you look or act, but here." She pressed her hand against his chest. He swallowed hard, overcome with emotion. He realized it wasn't just his health that had been restored. It was his marriage, his intimacy, his sense of being alive. Every night, as he turned off the lights and took the vitamin, he whispered a small thank you to himself for not giving up. He remembered the man he had been, tired, discouraged, drifting into resignation, and compared him to the man he was becoming. It was as if he had opened a door that had been closed for years, letting light flood into a room he had forgotten existed. By the end of the month, David was no longer skeptical. He was convinced. The vitamin hadn't just helped him sleep, it had rippled through every part of his life. He had energy to enjoy his days, passion to strengthen his nights, and clarity to look forward to the future. For the first time in years, he didn't fear the number of candles on his birthday cake. Instead, he felt ready, ready for life, ready for love, ready for whatever came next. And it all began with one decision: to believe that something so small could make such a big difference. David didn't realize just how much his life had shifted until one particular evening, nearly 2 months after he had first started the nightly ritual. He came home from work to find Anna in the kitchen, her hair tied back, humming softly as she stirred a pot of soup. The simple domestic scene might have once passed him by, but now he noticed everything: the warmth in the air, the scent of rosemary, the way her hips swayed with the rhythm of her song. He slipped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, and whispered in her ear. She laughed, leaning back against him, and he felt a joy so profound that he had to pause. This was what had been missing. Not just energy or sleep or physical vigor, but the fullness of being alive in his own body, sharing it with the woman he loved. They ate dinner together, and afterward, instead of collapsing onto the couch as he used to, David suggested a walk by the river. The evening air was crisp, and the city lights shimmered across the water. Anna looked at him sideways, teasing, "Who are you and what have you done with my husband?" He grinned. "Maybe I'm just the man you married." Finally awake again, she smiled, and for a long moment their steps fell into perfect rhythm. The transformation had become undeniable. His colleagues respected him more now, drawn to his steady energy and sharp focus. Younger employees often came to him for advice, impressed not just by his experience, but by the calm authority he carried. David had once feared becoming invisible as he aged, a man fading into the background while the world sped on. Instead, he found himself stepping into a new role, one that gave him pride and purpose. His mind felt clearer, his body more cooperative, and his spirit more grounded than it had in years. But the greatest change was in his home. Anna glowed, laughing more often, her eyes sparkling with the same mischief she'd had when they first fell in love. They lingered over meals, talked deep into the night, and shared moments of intimacy that reignited their bond. David noticed the way she touched him now, not hesitantly, not with the concern she had carried when he was tired and withdrawn, but with hunger, with affection, with the unspoken joy of being wanted and cherished. It was as if the years of distance between them were melting away, replaced by something stronger and more tender than before. One weekend, their daughter Emily came to visit. She was in her late 20s, sharp and independent, and she immediately noticed the change. "Dad, you look amazing," she said, staring at him across the dinner table. "What's your secret? Did you start running marathons or something?" David laughed, shaking his head, but when Anna added with a wink, "Your father's finally taking care of himself," Emily beamed. For David, that moment carried more weight than he could admit aloud. To see his child notice not just his appearance, but his spirit. It was proof that this transformation wasn't a fantasy. It was real, and it radiated outward into every corner of his life. Still, there was one test left. A month later, David was invited to a college reunion. He almost didn't go. Memories of aging, comparisons with old friends, had always made him uncomfortable. But Anna insisted, and he finally agreed. When he walked into the banquet hall, heads turned. His old classmates, many of whom carried the weary look of time, blinked at him in surprise. Some joked, "What fountain of youth did you find?" Others marveled at how vibrant and relaxed he looked. For once, David didn't deflect or hide. He simply smiled, shook hands, and enjoyed the evening. He felt no jealousy, no insecurity, only gratitude for the path he had chosen. That night, as he and Anna drove home, she leaned her head on his shoulder and whispered, "I was so proud of you tonight." Her words struck him deeply. Pride wasn't something he had associated with himself in years. He had spent too long in the shadows of fatigue and decline. Now, he was standing tall again, not perfect, not invincible, but fully alive, fully himself. The biggest breakthrough came quietly on an ordinary night. David woke before dawn, sunlight just beginning to peek through the blinds. He lay there in the stillness, listening to Anna breathe beside him. His body felt rested, strong, eager to rise and embrace the day. He realized with a clarity that pierced his heart that he was no longer waiting for life to pass him by. He wasn't counting down the years or mourning what he had lost. He was here, in the present, with vigor, passion, and love flowing back into him like a river. For years, he had believed aging meant surrendering, that decline was inevitable. But now he saw that while time marched on, the way he met it was his choice. One small change, a single vitamin, taken with consistency and faith, had not only restored his sleep, but had awakened something deeper, his will to live fully, to fight for joy, to hold on to the things that mattered most. He began writing again, filling a journal with his thoughts each morning. Sometimes it was gratitude for simple things, the warmth of his coffee, the softness of Anna's hand in his. Other times, it was reflections on what he wanted to do with this second chance. Travel perhaps, volunteer work, more family gatherings. He even thought about mentoring younger men, helping them see that health and vitality weren't lost at 50, 60, or beyond. Anna noticed his journaling habit and teased him gently, but she also grew more affectionate, more secure in the new rhythm of their lives. Their love life blossomed, their laughter filled the house, and David felt as though their marriage had been rewoven with golden thread. He often thought about how close he had come to losing this, to resigning himself to a dull, tired existence. The vitamin was no miracle cure, he knew that. It was a spark, a catalyst. What made the true difference was his decision to believe in himself again, to act with intention, to embrace change instead of fearing it. The capsule had given him rest, but the rest had given him courage, and the courage had given him everything else. On his 60th birthday, surrounded by family and friends, David raised his glass. His voice was steady, filled with gratitude. A year ago, I thought my best days were behind me. But now I realize life doesn't have to slow down, it can open up if we let it. To health, to love, and to never giving up on ourselves. The cheers around him echoed through the room, but the most important thing was Anna's smile, glowing at him from across the table. She mouthed, "I love you," and David felt the truth of it resonate in his bones. He had not only regained his strength and passion, he had regained his life. And as he blew out the candles, he knew this was just the beginning.